anyone can have a logo on a screen. Anyone can have a logo that is up on the board if they can afford it. But the point is that's one element that should be in an arsenal of what your plan is to leverage the fan base, right? Because those fans are very loyal.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, R.E.A.L.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, I get to speak with Ondar Tarlow, and he is a dynamic marketing executive with over 2 decades of expertise in strategic brand development, digital transformation, and lifestyle branding. As a chief marketing officer at Connecta Federal Credit Union and Pacific Premier Bank, he spearheaded innovative campaigns that generated billions in product volume and earned multiple industry accolades, including Diamond Awards and Top 100 Marketer recognition. A graduate of California State University, Northridge with a BA in psychology, Ondar also holds digital marketing certifications from UCLA and certifications in crisis communication and media relations from the American Red Cross. Dedicated to community growth, he serves on the board of Junior Achievement, promoting financial education and career readiness. Now a marketing consultant for motorsports, financial, and lifestyle brands, Ondar collaborates with organizations like Fastlane Drive, where he connects passion with performance to elevate brand visibility. His sponsorships, including the LA Chargers, Anaheim Ducks, Porsche's Left 10, and Beach Life Music Festival, showcase his knack for creating authentic connections. And known for infusing humor into his campaigns, Ondar ensures brands stand out in the crowded advertising landscape. And we're going to talk quite a bit about Fastlane Drive, because that is what is going to be something fun to hear from him, along with a bunch of other things too. But you are in for a treat to listen to this interview with Ondar. But first, it's time for our Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. The topic I wanted to cover is a topic that I was able to bring up while I was on a panel discussion about navigating career changes. It was a bunch of wonderful HR professionals, recruiters, and then there was me. And it was a collaboration between the PRSA, so Public Relations Society of America, the Idaho chapter, and the Boise Advertising Federation chapter. And so I was there to talk about personal branding and things to consider while you're on the job hunt or when you are in a professional setting and workspace. So what I came up with was to keep it real. And so I'm going to share what that acronym really means. And obviously I love the alliteration on the R words, because I always talk about raise 5 R's, which is the ratings and rankings and reviews and referrals, and then rewarding people who do those things for you. So keeping it in the R theme, since Ray, my name starts with R, I decided that I wanted to come up with something that was going to be memorable, hopefully. And it seemed to go over pretty well with the audience. So we had people in person. It was a sold out crowd, and then they had people online too. So I just am going to share with you what keeping it real, R-E.A.L, really stands for in this capacity. So R is respect your authenticity. And what we mean by that is when you are going in for a job interview or you are trying to portray your personal brand, people connect with people. People connect with what feels real and genuine. And when you respect your authenticity, you stay true to your values, your passions, and your unique qualities. You're not just trying to give answers that you think that the other person wants to hear. You are being true to yourself. You're keeping it real, right? And you are doing things to reflect on your core values or what you believe in, either your mission or your mantra or what motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Those are the things that you can present as you are and the real person that you are. Also thinking about how you can respect your authenticity by sharing your personal journey, your stories, both your successes and maybe your challenges, to add some relatability. And of course, in interviews, they're always going to ask what your strengths and weaknesses are. Be honest. Be honest about it. Obviously, those are the things that help you perpetuate your authenticity and can showcase real situations, real times that you can talk about when interviewers are going to ask you that question. Tell me about a time when you had a challenge. Tell me about a time when there was conflict in the workplace. Tell me about a time when, whatever questions they come up with, just keep it real and authentic. Now the E in real, so we said R is respect your authenticity. E is engage consistently. What I mean by that is building that personal brand is not just a one-time effort. You need to consistently engage across the platforms that you're using, like LinkedIn or any of those other tools that are out there, but consistently keeping your brand presence and the image that you wish to portray. And remember, what happens in Vegas does not just stay in Vegas. It happens and it stays on Facebook and all the places. So no longer can we say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? You want to portray yourself in the best light because we know that recruiters are going to be looking at your social media. They're going to be looking at the things that you're posting, saying, doing, commenting, because it's just the reality of what we are looking when we're wanting to hire somebody. So, keep it real. So, and also, continuously engaging with those that are in your industry, attending events like the PRSA events that they put on, the Public Relations Society of America, or Boise AdFed, or American Advertising Federation events, or Idaho whatever it is, right? Staying in people's mindset and consistently posting, consistently showing up, even in person. That also means engaging consistently, either in person or online or offline. But thinking about how your presence is going to reinforce top of mind awareness, or otherwise known as TOMA. And when people are thinking about you, when somebody else might say, hey, do you know anybody that's looking for a job? Or do you know anybody that is not happy where they're at? Or do so consistently showing up, being present, being on their feeds, commenting on their posts, those types of things can really help you keep that top of mind awareness and engage consistently. And that also means that follow-up is key as well here. So if somebody does reach out to you, make sure that you are engaging with them. So that's the E, engage consistently. The A in keeping it real, so R.E.A., act with intention. Every action you take should align with your personal brand and your goals that you've set out. And acting with intention ensures that your efforts are really purposeful and contribute to that image that you wish to project and showcase. So thinking about how your personal brand can become developed over time. Maybe you want to be a thought leader in your industry, or you want to attract specific career opportunities. Set some clear goals for yourself. What are some things that you can do to continuously act with intention when it comes to building your personal brand, your reputation, all of those things that can get you the job that you desire or the client that you wish to attract, right? So be intentional about the content that you share, all about the comments that you make, showing up where you're at, when you're at those places. Act with intention. And of course, thinking about how this is going to reflect on your expertise, your personality, and what other people will say about you when you have been TOMA, top of mind, and have created TOMA in their mind, top of mind awareness. Okay. Now, L in keeping it real, R.E.A.L, leverage your network. A strong personal brand isn't just about building yourself in isolation. You've got to leverage your network. Somebody knows somebody that's looking for somebody like you. So amplify your message, create opportunities for growth and collaboration. Go have coffee chats. I say the 3 C's: coffee, conference calls, or cocktails, if that's, part of you're okay, if you're okay with that. So think about it. If you can leverage your network, meet up for coffee with people, continuously creating those opportunities, talking about telling your story, sharing with authenticity. Those are the things that are going to help you build those meaningful relationships by offering the value to others, whether it's through advice you want to give, maybe you're connecting and giving introductions to others, you're supporting others just as much as you're wanting their support from them. Using the tools on LinkedIn to connect with other industry leaders, peers, potential collaborators, people who can recommend you to other people. don't hesitate to ask for those endorsements and testimonials or referrals from those people that you have worked with or that are colleagues, or maybe you've served on a panel, maybe you've served on a board before. Those are the types of good quality recommendations that you really need. So think about how you can keep it real. And when you're focusing on being real, you're respecting your authenticity, you're engaging consistently, acting with intention, and leveraging your network. And this way, you will create that personal brand that will not only stand out, but also resonate with those that you want to be resonating with, right? And people are drawn to what feels real and trustworthy. So keep it real. Now let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, R.E.A.L. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media and the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today's guest we have with us, Ondar Tarlow. Ondar, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be part of the show.
Excellent. And you're calling from California. Are you safe from fires, or what part are you from?
Thank you so much for asking. I am. Unfortunately, the fires cause a lot of tragedy for many, but I'm just south of Los Angeles, about 60 miles along the coast in Dana Point, California.
Wonderful. Well, I imagine it's a beautiful area, and hopefully, our hearts go out to those who have been impacted, and impacts not just that area, but the entire state, the entire nation. So, hopefully, people are going to be able to get through it, and it seems like they're still going, like they haven't stopped yet. And I just keep thinking, when is it going to stop?
Yeah, the winds never help here in Southern California. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that has caused a lot of trouble for many. I'm originally from Los Angeles and still have a lot of friends there. So, absolutely,
Yeah.
heart goes out to everyone there.
Well, me too. Well, let's talk about a little bit more. Let's get into the marketing path here. Andar, tell us a little bit more about you and your history, and it looks like you've worked with credit unions and things like that. But share a little more into sort of how you got to where you are now.
Absolutely. It's been an exciting ride for sure. I think anyone in marketing knows that you don't always have exactly a plan laid out to begin with. And so I started my marketing career a little more than 20 years ago in actually in the beverage side of things. So I used to import alcohol, used to import rum, had a rum brand
Ooh, fun.
from the Philippines in my earlier years,
Mhm.
and it was interesting. So I was able to learn a lot with a couple of partners in terms of the whole business of alcohol brands and being able to rebrand and able to acquire all of the necessary items to be able to distribute a brand like that. So it was quite an experience, quite exciting. Learned a lot. It was one of those things where you kind of don't know what you don't know, so you really get involved very deeply, and it heightened my interest in marketing so much that I made it a career after that. Unfortunately, the alcohol brand did not last, but it did give me a lot of knowledge that I still
Mhm.
keep with me today. And then fast forward a little bit and got into financial services, working for banks as well as wealth management, real estate, and also credit unions. And so my path has been very much on the digital side. So early on, if you can kind of think back, I hate to date myself, but if you think back to kind of the late 90s when my marketing career started, there really wasn't a big plan. There weren't courses that you could take at a college or university as part of a major in digital, because they didn't even call it digital. If
Right.
you remember way back, everything was called right? E-marketing,
Mhm.
e-commerce.
New
And
media. Do you remember that when it was new media?
yes, exactly. New media, kind of like social media today, where it's just kind of like it's
Yeah,
media, right? Sure,
exactly.
there's the social platforms, but it's really just media. But
I
absolutely,
thought it was
and
funny. We came full circle. I just have to share this. Today we were doing a go-to marketing strategy with a client, and my young she's just out of college a couple years now. She said rather than doing traditional social media, and I had to stop for a second. I'm like, Oh my gosh, she just called it traditional social media.
Abs- absolutely.
Wow. We have definitely come full circle.
Completely, Ray. Totally come full circle on that when you're hearing traditional now applied to social. Uh,
Exactly.
which is funny because I think about that early in my career. There was one of the companies I worked for, there was a traditional marketing department, then there was this other online marketing department, again, still not called digital. And
Right.
it was interesting because one of the first things that I asked is, why are there separate departments? It's all marketing.
Mhm.
And so that quickly came to be. And we joined those two departments with me leading that department
Mhm.
and then moving forward from there. So it's always interesting when you have that history in terms of what came before,
Oh, yeah.
because history always repeats itself. And to your point, Ray, with your young associate, it seems to have done that just so.
Yes.
And so I've been involved in marketing everything from large scale campaigns that included broadcasts from TV or linear, as well as streaming and radio, both linear and streaming, as
Mhm.
well as social and digital and website and event based experiential sponsorships. There's
Mm,
a long list, but
right.
all of it combines into really an exciting career that I've been fortunate to have by working with so many talented individuals, both on the teams that I've managed and been a part of,
Mhm.
as well as the brands that I've been fortunate enough to interact with, both brands that I've represented, as well as brands that I've collaborated with.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. I always love to share some success stories that people have endured or experienced. When I say success story to you, what's the first thing that kind of pops into mind in some marketing campaign or tactic that you took in any of the places that you worked before? What's something that comes to mind right away?
Absolutely. On the real estate side, so real estate was very, very traditional in, let's say, the early 2000s, and obviously stretching
Mhm.
previous to that. But really, real estate got a jump start from a lot of different companies that jumped into the space, whether it was Realtor.com or other brands like Trulia, as well as many others. And so there was an opportunity to work for a large scale independent national realtor and look at it from a lead generation digital perspective.
Mhm.
Um, and so some of the first advances, that led to some successes that were very interesting and very groundbreaking was simply just taking listings, right? So if you're buying a property or obviously selling a property, there's a listing. And normally, right, it would all be a part of newspapers.
Mhm.
If any of us remember
Mm,
newspapers.
the classified
Uh,
and when you
uh,
take the paper, they call it, right? Who
yes.
takes the paper anymore? I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really about, and I'll just call it digital for ease of reference. It really was about digital. It was really about getting the product, which is your listings, all online across a set of sites that had strong traffic. And so it was early on in those days identifying, okay, what did that mean? What are the opportunities in order to convert folks that were interested in specific properties and then take them down the funnel and execute. And so early on, a company that I worked with and for, we started to be able to take data, essentially listing data that was coming through the MLS or the
Mhm.
multiple listing service, and be able to create videos out of that and then load those directly to YouTube. So this is back in the 2008, 2009 timeframe. So
Mhm.
very, very, very early on. I
Mhm.
was a part of that, and we would utilize those videos and then also embed them into listing ads that would appear on those list of sites, as I mentioned, whether it's
Mhm.
Realtor.com or Trulia or many, many others, and we would drive leads from that. And so that success came early because we were a pioneer in that field. We understood real estate very well. We were still getting our feet wet as far as the digital advertising, but
Mhm.
we were working with very innovative companies that we could drive not only traffic but be able to drive business with as well. So we were able to not only list but then also sell millions of dollars in properties back then, by utilizing technology in a very forward fashion, but always keeping an eye on the entire funnel and the conversion and execution of those sales, not just the top of the funnel, and being able to share, stats that
Mhm.
may seem interesting at the time, but they didn't necessarily sell. So we were really focused on the sell side and being able to utilize and leverage the technology exactly for that, and working with these very cutting edge sites, including YouTube, to be able to do that helped a lot in my journey as we move forward.
Well, it really changed the way that people buy because some people with videos will buy sight unseen. They'll just see the video and be like, okay, sold, and not have to necessarily travel or take the trip to go visit, or, they can look at these videos. And I remember when the 360 camera came out, where you could do the virtual tours and then you could,
Right.
go through and look at all the different spaces and places. When I moved from Boise to Seattle, we ended up in a brand new apartment complex, and I remember, and this is early 2000s, and and I remember looking at photos that you could kind of move around, and that was like cutting edge, was the brand new thing. I was like, this is so cool. So we ended up moving to an apartment without actually having been there, but we needed to get a deposit down and do all the things, right? And so it just, yeah, with video and photos and images, I think it's like it transformed how people would buy online, and kind of changed from word of mouth to word of well, I'll say world of mouse.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's true. And really, I also believe that technology, when utilized right, really empowers the buyer. Obviously, it's empowering the seller and the marketer as well, as it should, but it's empowering the buyer, right?
Yeah.
Because as you said, it was kind of physically sight unseen, though you saw it in the digital world,
Mhm.
and that
Yeah.
and that was enough for you to move forward. So now, when we're advertising on things like YouTube or our own websites or on social media, you can leverage that medium in such a way that really you can capture the attention of people to be able to take that next step in
In the
the
process.
buying journey. Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing with video. I mean, you basically have, somebody that can help sell for you 24/7 on your website, whereas, a salesperson in person, they need to sleep sometimes, right?
Yeah. And now with AI, right,
Yes.
there's nothing that needs to sleep, and
Yeah.
they can assist for sure.
With the chat bots and all the things, right? There's I mean, there's still something to be said about having the human intelligence.
It's true, and you see that. I think that you see that change quite a bit. Also, when you're looking at youth, my daughter's 14, and a lot of what she will look at, obviously, will be
Mhm.
online to begin with, and whether it's trends, et cetera. And you said utilizing YouTube, she utilizes YouTube a lot, not only just for personal, but then also for education, and so it also
Mhm.
comes into the shopping stage as well.
Mhm.
But what very smart advertisers as well as brands have seen is that they're leveraging, the social and other forms of digital communication to then create an experience in the physical world as well, which, from my point of view, really exponentially increases the ability to create brand loyalty beyond
Mhm.
just the screen, whether the screen's in your hand, it's a laptop or tablet, but being able to join the digital world with the physical world, it's another step in that journey that the brands that are doing it right today, whether they have a permanent set of stores or they have pop-up stores, they're able to really win consumers over.
Well, and interesting, you're mentioning young people and the influence they have over their parents' buying decisions now, unlike before. I mean, when I was a kid, I just got what I got, and don't throw a fit. You get what you get. Don't throw a fit. And now it's like these young people have so much more access to being able to be exposed to brands and ideas, that they now have some influence. They're the decision makers in some cases now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. I have a 17 and a 19, two boys, And yeah, I definitely see the transition of, because they were born with digital devices since day one, where maybe some of us weren't, and not to mention age and things. But it's just fascinating. And I also teach at Boise State, so I have two upper division college classes, and the students and just like they were born with the digital natives, right? They don't know anything else any other way, and just always having access to information, whether it's right or wrong information, right? But it's evolving, and now with Chat GPT and all these different tools that they have access to, it's perpetually evolving in how can they use it to their advantage.
Yeah, and I
And
think that's exactly right, and it kind of takes it to from a brand. If you're looking at it from a brand perspective, and you're trying to create an audience and create a loyal audience, is really understanding how to leverage all the technology, how to leverage all of the angles of entry, those points at which consumers, whether they're 10, 14, 18,
Mhm.
45, however, whatever their age is, they're going to decide they're going to engage in one or multiple ways. And usually it is multiple ways. And so you need to be able to be there for how they're going to engage and have a
Mhm.
plan for how you're going to bring them through the funnel. Right. And
Mhm.
if that's on the brand and kind of consideration stage, or if it's all the way through to sale, depending upon the avenue that and the medium that you're taking. But
Yeah.
that's it's a very exciting time for brands that can test and learn and make it work, because they can increase their not only their exposure but their also their capture as far as an audience is concerned, by leveraging multiple forms of media in the right
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
uh, as you were saying, with respect to youth and youth culture, they're going to engage, how they want to engage, and they're going to learn about brands so much quicker than probably you and I did when we were younger, right? There was
Right.
only a certain way we could do it. We needed to go to the store and take a look at a product, right? In
Mhm.
in today's world, they can look at it in so many different ways, where they can look at it from a virtual standpoint, they can look at it from a tactile standpoint, as well as an experiential standpoint, um, continually. And so that
Mhm.
that creates that opportunity as far as awareness, consideration, and loyalty.
Oh yeah, definitely elevates the ways that we have to get the messages out in front of people, and like you said, meet them where they're at. And it's seemingly unpredictable now because so many different generations are at various different levels of how comfortable they are with the technology and tools. I mean, for example, I just got my grandma, she's 85, she turned 85 this last month, an Apple Watch. Mostly because I wanted to be able to detect if she falls or, her
Oh,
blood level,
sure.
that kind of thing. But the difference in generations and just what people have comfort levels in doing. And even some younger people are not necessarily completely digitally savvy as much as you would just assume that they would be. And so it's really now you can't just do things based on their age. You also have to now look at all the things that they're exposed to and interests that they have, and are they somebody that's going to easily just shop online, or are they going to want that, like you said, the experience where they want to touch things and have that textile, like being able to um, you know get something sent to them in the mail and send it back versus going to the store physically, getting in your car and going to the store versus, just seeing it online. And it really has been more segmented, beyond just sort of the traditional way of, okay, well, this age range, this target demographic, this lifestyle that they have. Now it's like a whole other level of considerations that you have to put into your plan of what you're doing, right? I mean, you've done things for lots of different types of brands. I would imagine that every brand has, like, okay, this is a tried and true way that we can get new business or new clients involved or brand loyalists. And now it's just completely different. And it's changing so quickly.
I think that's exactly right, especially when you're talking about the generations. We as marketers should never really slip into that formula of it's a one size fits all, even on a per generation basis. I was having this discussion not that long ago
Mhm.
between Gen Y and Gen Z
Mhm.
from a financial services perspective. And when you get into the research and you take a look and see how as a group, let's say Gen Y or Gen Z interacts with a financial institution or considers it,
Mm-hmm.
what you find is there's definitely a difference between the two, and you hear from time to time the term, which is definitely not my favorite, but the younger generation, and it's sort of like, well, what does that mean exactly? And so that's where you have to take that, let's say, veteran marketer hat off, and you really have to look at it and say, okay, how are we actually segmenting this, and what can we learn from the research, and then allow through a lot of testing the data to really help, as opposed to assumptions. Now that we have so much more data available, we need to be able to identify the data that's going to help, and then use it as well, and test and refine what we're doing so that we can be as smart as possible. What you were talking about a moment ago in terms of whether you're driving to the store or you're creating an audience, it kind of takes me back to also what marketers, even if they're not necessarily involved in, let's say, sponsorships or working with teams or leagues or venues, what they can take from sports itself, in the fact that you see, and obviously post-COVID, everything has kind of returned back to pre-COVID in terms of people love to go to in-person events.
Yeah.
They also obviously continued to love to watch events via their device, whether that's their mobile device or traditional TV or whatnot. But they like to be involved in events, and so that's a key piece in order to recognize, to be a part of whatever your marketing mix is you need to be able to, get people excited and be able to leverage a brand in the right way to be involved with those types of events, sports, music events, and more.
Well, even we went to a hockey game and there's screens in the suite. So people are watching the screens, even though the hockey game is just right in front of them, It's like,
Exactly.
like, yeah, that's what we're here to watch is the screen, even though we've got the game right there.
Right. Or as you see in some of the newer, more amazing venues, let's say like SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, you have this massive video ring that's two-sided, that's called the Oculus, that is literally in the center of the stadium, that is attached to the roof. And you can see so much through that screen. It's unbelievable technology. And so what you do find, and purposely built, by the stadium, is that people are primarily watching the screen, even though they're sitting in their seats and they can look down, even if they were in a suite with a TV, because they're interacting visually so much more with everything that's going on with the game. It's literally right in front of them. So there's no real separation, so to speak, between the physical watching a game and then the digital, watching it on screen. It's really happening at the same time.
And then they've got their phone in their hand, and they've got, well, I mean, let's be honest too. It also kind of depends on what tickets you have or what seats you have. Because if you're like way up there in the nosebleeds, then that's a nice perk to be able to watch the screen. But yeah, if you're sitting there right on the 50-yard line, or whatever sport you're watching, it's like, okay, we've gotten used to this, and I think the average home has like 16 devices in some, either Internet of Things or screens, or iPads and computer screens, and all of those types of things. If you think about it, like, holy moly, I'm sure that even homes now have even more than that. But it's like, we are just walking around and there's no way you can avoid screens.
That's true, unless you just shut them all off. But the multi-screen is definitely here to stay, right? You may be sitting on your sofa and looking at a traditional TV, but then you have your phone right next to you in case you get a text message, and then you've got your laptop because you're doing research or work at the same time. And all those obviously are also points of engagement, potentially for marketers, if done in the right way.
Right. They find me, follow you. Just because you've been on your phone, now you're going to see a similar ad online, and you're going to be followed everywhere.
True.
Want to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? At Poderific, we don't just produce podcasts. We help you create auditory experiences that will captivate your audience. Our state-of-the-art podcast recording studio, powered by Peppershock Media, is designed for creators like you. Record with high-quality equipment supported by our expert team and distribute your podcast across major platforms like Apple and Spotify. Whether you're launching your first episode or you're a seasoned podcaster, we got you covered. Visit Poderific.com today to learn how we can help you produce, record, and share your story with the world. Your podcast deserves to be Poderific.
So what kind of projects are you working on now? What's kind of the latest and greatest, or maybe a project on horizon?
Yeah, what's really exciting is I'm working with an organization called Fastlane Drive, and Fastlane Drive is an exotic car club, but it's really more than that. It's really social and networking and philanthropy. So we have over 20 chapters across the U.S. and also including Monaco, Paris, and Tokyo, and a little over 1,500 members. And so what's interesting there is I'm helping to build out the chapter with the chapter owners down here in Orange County, California, and then also working with those across the country as well. And that really is a combination from let's say a marketer standpoint, a heavy amount of social media. As you can imagine, those that are interested in cars, which is a high percentage of folks, and those who are interested in exotic cars, supercars, hypercars, will take a lot of time out of their day to watch interactions on social media. So there's a lot that goes on from a social media perspective, but then as we were talking about before, you take that social media as an entry point for those interested in learning more about the club or how they can be involved. And it's a very exclusive club. But then also for those that become members, then taking that really more into the physical world and producing, very high-end events for the members. And so we have the ability through our means to not only interact and attract members through digital means, but then also as they become full-fledged members, then be able to continue to communicate with them through various digital means, and then also take it through to physical events as well, which is exciting. So everything that we do from an event perspective has a media team that's attached to it as well. Multiple reasons. One, the media that we're able to capture that we share with our own members is exciting for the members to see their cars, interacting with their friends. We also then capture that media for marketing purposes as well as for use by sponsors and partners that we may have.
Yeah, that's exciting. I know my 17-year-old is 100% into cars. In fact, he wants to go to college to become a car engineer. He wants to make cars. I mean, and I have no doubt that he will get to do that. He'll just have to move away from where we're at because there's really no car making facilities here. But he's definitely into, the Formula One and all of the, exotic cars. And I just see him and his generation, kind of tying back to the Gen Z, Gen Y era that's happening. And you're absolutely right. The content, if it's created in such a way that's not just an advertisement, they will be hooked on that and watch it for hours if they could, if we let them, right? And it's nice because then at least they can watch something that they're interested in, and they don't feel like they're just being sold to.
That's right. It truly is entertainment. That's really the key. And then that entertainment for folks of various ages can also then turn into something more, right? Maybe it's a career, maybe they're interested from a research perspective or something adjacent. You think about, like, for instance, we were talking about Fastlane Drive, and some of the content that's produced by the media teams is pretty amazing because we may do let's say, if you can kind of visualize for a second, a police escort that is ahead of 50 supercars and hypercars, combination of Ferraris, Bugattis, Koenigsegg's, McLarens, Porsches, Lamborghinis, rolling down the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, right? So if you visualize that for a second, that's the type of imagery that is gold. Oh, yeah. That interests people and can really heighten a brand in so many amazing ways that traditional advertising cannot. And that's something that is very clear to, I think, not only a lot of automotive manufacturers, but then also additional brands from there. Your point you mentioned that your son is interested in Formula One. Formula One is a big piece of culture now in the US, which, let's say, 10 years ago, while there was a lot of fans, you just didn't see it much. And
Mhm.
then with the advent of the DTS, or more well known as Drive to Survive series on Netflix, that
Mhm.
has really lifted F1, Formula One, as well as other types of auto racing, quite a bit, to the fact that now there's, three races in the US, where you have Miami and Austin and Las Vegas,
Mhm.
whereas just a few years ago, there was only one. And that is also a big opportunity for marketers, big opportunity for F1, as well as other brands, to capture attention. And one thing that's interesting about F1 that I was just reading a statistic about is that, F1 being global and being the most watched sport, in addition to soccer or football outside the US as they know it, is that now the majority of investment from brands in F1 is now out of US based companies. In the past, it was European based companies by far and wide. Now that has really switched over the last couple of years with the popularity in the US and obviously the buying power that the US has. And so it's been pretty interesting to watch the types of brands that have jumped in with F1 to be a part of that experience and a part of that movement.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definite opportunities there for brands to kind of jump on the bandwagon, if you will, because it's getting lots of eyeballs, like you said, and lots of people are, becoming super fans and will look at the brands that their favorite drivers are donning and wearing and supporting and endorsing, right? And definitely, be a part of it. An example is Liquid Death. It's water, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that story
It
just
is
fascinates
water.
me to no
It's
end.
it's simply water and packaging and a lot of marketing.
I mean, oh my gosh! When I first saw it, I thought, Caden, that looks like alcohol, right? It's not. It's just water, mom. Like, oh my gosh, so true, so
And
true.
packaged up in kind of a tall boy beer can, right?
Yes,
With
yeah. And with a name like Liquid Death, I mean, it's got to be a rebel brand or something that's, what is going on? How does this even, you can charge what for a can of water?
right. Yeah, $5, $6 for a can of water, and then everybody wants it. But yeah, they found a niche in the market and really exposed it, right? So that they would
Yeah,
differentiate themselves from a branding side as well as a packaging side, with which goes along with it. So really kudos to them for being able to do that. You mentioned a lot of the brands that are interacting, whether it's with drivers or teams in F1, or whether it's IndyCar or other types of motorsports and other sports as well. I think one thing that's been interesting in my background and the teams and that I've worked with as well is always looking at that as not a logo play, right?
right.
In that anyone can have a logo on a screen, anyone can have a logo that is up on the board if they can afford it. But
Hmm.
the point is that's one element that should be in an arsenal of what your plan is to leverage the fan base, right? Because those fans are very loyal. When
Right.
they're watching, F1, they're watching American football, or they're watching soccer, whatever it is, they're not interested in being sold in the same way they would if they were somewhere else. You have to
Mhm.
integrate your brand into the entertainment and activity that your audience is interested in. If you don't, it's really just a large waste of money. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the keys to figure out, and then also be able to measure it. Now, the ability to measure that type of thing is easier, not perfect, but
Mhm.
easier than it has been in the past. But you can also see brands, and I won't mention any specific by name, but you do see brands that spend a lot of money, but they don't really seem to fit. And I think that's the other
Mhm.
piece, is that brand alignment. Does your
Mhm.
brand really align with the experience, the activity, the sport that you're
Yeah.
investing?
I'll just mention, like, Rolex sponsoring an F1 race versus, let's say, a Daytona 500. You just don't see that. I mean, that's a really prime example. It's got to be a good fit,
Right.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. Ondar, tell me a little more, just because we were kind of going down the path of some success stories, and just maybe we'll share one more that comes to mind for you in all of the different brands that you've been a part of. Is there something else that you'd like to share? Kind of go on that marketing journey with us of, kind of what the problem was and what you did to help solve, and what kind of tactics did you take, and how did you get them from point A to point B?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for let's take it for financial institutions, one very important thing for financial institutions, banks, credit unions, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
is deposits, right? Is being able to have
Right.
banking business. And so, that is a constant item that is, you can call it a problem. You can obviously call it a need and part of the business basics. But then
Mm-hmm.
how do you plan so that you can attain business, from a marketing standpoint as well? And we'll keep going down the path a little bit on the sports side
Mm-hmm.
to talk about how in 2017 I was involved with other talented folks in being able to work directly with the Los Angeles Chargers, formerly known as the San Diego Chargers,
Oh yeah.
NFL football team, of course, as they were making their move to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they were interested in taking a look at a lot of partners, and one of those is in of course, the banking vertical. And so we had an opportunity when I was working for Pacific Premier Bank um, to do just that, to be able to craft an agreement and a relationship that lasted for a long time, and it was really a win-win situation. So the win on the charter side was a sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
And working with a known brand in the market and a strong brand and a quality brand in Pacific Premier.
Mm-hmm.
And then the win on the Pacific Premier side was not only the marketing and the brand exposure that we were to attain as part of being associated with the Chargers, but then also the banking business. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a key piece is we were able to build, and this is through purposeful action amongst many, be able to build a relationship that was really mutually beneficial, right? So we were essentially clients of each other. And when you're able to hit that right note, you can do some pretty interesting things. And we built year-round campaigns across all your common marketing mediums, whether it was social, digital, in person, game, venue, and so forth, to be able to do that. Sometimes you have brands, especially in financial services or credit unions, that may be so excited to just be associated with a sports brand, whether that's in the soccer side of MLS or
Mm-hmm.
NHL or NFL or NBA or MLB, but they are not really taking a hard look and say, well, how can they benefit from a business standpoint in addition to the marketing standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
And so brands should always ask themselves that question: is this really a two-sided relationship? Is this a benefit on both sides? And how are we going to use all of the assets that we're getting as part of the sponsorship to benefit us, right? And make sure that the assets are all going to be performing assets and a way to measure, if not all, then most of those assets to see if they're performing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what you're to your point about partnering and kind of being each other's client, it's nice because you have this ability to sort of cross promote each other, and both of your brands elevate because of it. Now you've suddenly got a huge audience on both sides rather than just leaning on one directional way to get your message out. Sponsorships are great because then, and especially events too, because now you can do things to get clients involved. You can get the brand elevated in lots of different ways. And you're right, I think that it's helpful when you can leverage that and you have such a good partnership that you can do it throughout the year and not just like a one and done kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. And that one and done is the mistake that a lot of brands make. And it comes with experience. nowadays there's a lot that you can read, there's a lot that you can research. And all of us as marketers need to continue the conversations amongst each other to really be able to learn from each other. There's those that have been involved in very large scale campaigns, and maybe those that have been doing things in a little bit more of a standard fashion. Being able to reach out and share knowledge and learn from one another, it helps all of us as marketers, and that's a key piece, because those that you are investing your marketing budget with, whether it is teams, venues, leagues, or advertising platforms and media, aren't necessarily going to tell you all their secrets, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not always. It would be nice, but yeah.
So that community of marketers that you can build, over time, and share with those, that are kind of veterans in the industry, as well as those that are a little bit newer to the industry, and mix it up, is so important. That's where I find that, whether it is physical and sometimes virtual conferences can really be a benefit, is when you really dig into the details. It's not so much that, folks are speaking at you, as much as when you have a dialogue with people across the board, because the marketing acumen is so vast now, and it moves so quickly, and there's things that will remain as standards, and there's other things that are constantly changing. It's so important to have that community and that sounding board to be able to learn and talk about ideas and ways that we can test as marketers to see how we can be most successful as far as supporting our brands, as well as communities that we're involved with.
Yeah. Ondar, tell us a little bit more about how we can reach out to you and those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I would say from a social perspective, I am most active on LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn is a great outlet for me personally. As far as writing is concerned, I also absorb, digest, and learn a lot of information through folks that I follow on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Ondar Tarlow. You can also find me on my website, ondartarlow.com. Those are the two best ways, and I look forward to everyone reaching out to me and making connections.
Excellent. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience before we part ways today?
Absolutely. I'm a very, very passionate marketer, very interested in supporting brands and supporting brands that are interested in growing across the board. And so if I can be of service, whether that's a knowledge share, whether that's a project or something further, I'm happy to do so.
Excellent. Well, and one thing we really didn't get a chance to talk about is how you incorporate humor into your campaigns and things that you're doing. So just share like a quick little brief thing, what the importance of infusing humor into your campaigns. What does that do for brands?
Yeah, it's really about differentiation, right? As far as humor is concerned, you have a lot of brands that, are appealing in one way or the other, but they can also be a little bit similar to one another as well. Being able to inject humor in a smart way and really respect your audience in that, they're intelligent folks, is important, so that they kind of get the joke and they're along with you. And that helps to kind of break through the clutter and break through the noise of what you typically see. But you can't just have it end at one ad, that might be witty and everybody loves. Mm-hmm. Is you really have to craft a campaign around that, so that authenticity in terms of tone of humor comes through every medium that you may be using. And you want to obviously use it in the right way. So overall,
it's memorable. I mean, I don't know how many Super Bowl commercials I can think of that were super funny and entertaining, but I can't remember what brand they're for.
That's exactly right.
So you're right. You've got to incorporate both.
Absolutely. And being able to leverage that as part of a plan, right? Mm-hmm. So, you may have your standouts in terms of the mediums that you're using, whether it's a streaming, TV, linear, spot, whatever it is, but you need to be able to, craft around that, right? What type of marketing are you doing ahead of time to at least generate some interest for people to watch? What are you doing across other media, and then what are you doing after those ads air that continue with that same feeling, and really represent the brand well, so that it's not, to your point earlier, a one and done, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really part of a planned and smart strategy to be able to grow your business and your brand.
Yeah, well, that's great. And nothing's better and more satisfying than when people laugh at the joke that you wanted them to laugh at.
When you're absolutely when you're in a room of folks and they laughed, that is extremely satisfying, and it's
Yep.
pretty much different than I would say any other reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. Well, thank you so much for your contributions today to the show and just giving us all kinds of good nuggets and marketing journeys, success stories that you've had. Thank you for your time today.
Ray, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure, and I look forward to joining you again.
Excellent. And for those of you listening, the best thing that you can do for Ondar and I is share this with others that you know that need to hear what he had to say today. Give us a review, subscribe to the podcast, and reach out to him and or us if you have a need for what we do. And until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in our online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.